So everyone has a story. And some life stories, when you think about it, are magical. Some can be tragic. However, what I find is that most of us, we often go through life thinking that our story is irrelevant. But the truth is that there's power in our stories. And when we share our stories, it can help someone else to move forward. But more importantly, is that sharing our stories can be so instrumental in helping us heal. That's what we're going to dive into today on the Life Recreated Show. If you're ready to learn, let's dive in. Hey, Recreators, what's going on? This is Nick back again on the Life Recreated Show. On this channel, listen, we're all about learning, healing, and growing in our faith. And so we dive into different topics like we've been talking about in forgiveness and different things, just like what we're going to talk about this evening and sharing our story. So if you're new here for the first time and, you're just checking back in, definitely consider subscribing, hitting that like button. It definitely helps us out. So let's jump into today's topic this evening. So life stories, we know that everybody has them. Think about it. This is the reason why we have autobiographies and things that are so popular, because when we look at life, we realize that every single person, every single individual has a unique story. When we look at the Bible addresses the power of our story, the power of really, who we are and the things that we may have gone through. In Revelations chapter 12:11, it tells us that they triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. So that word, that word of their story, that word of who they are as individuals and maybe what they have gone through, is what was powerful and what helped them overcome. So when we think about that, we think about the fact that with every single one of us having a story, we got to recognize that God has given us that story. He's given us these experiences so that we can be a benefit to someone else. And in turn, that can help us to find healing and find wholeness within our own lives. But here's the thing that I want to dive into first is, why is it such a challenge sometimes for us to share our stories with others? And, I've thought about this before in my own mind. I've thought about it in my own life. And this is kind of where I was at before I even started sharing this type of content, sharing my own personal story and my own personal experience. Is I felt this challenge of knowing that, I experienced something or I went through something that me sharing that story can help somebody that's probably going through it, because I'm sure all these people are, a lot of other people are going through it. But being in that place where I know I have a story that can help somebody, but feeling stuck, like I don't know how to go about sharing that story. And so this is the challenge that some of us face. We know we have something that God allows us to experience, and it's something that we need to share with others because it can be helpful. But we find ourselves stuck being in a place where it's such a challenge for us to just really be bold and open our mouth and share that story. And so there's a couple reasons I think about that, and I want to consider with you is, when it comes to sharing our story, oftentimes we need a safe place to share. This whole kind of series, we've been talking about healing, what healing looks like, what that journey of healing looks like. And one of the challenges that we face along that journey is finding this safe place, right? So, let's say we go through an experience of something traumatic, something that has hurt us, or something that has given us a negative experience. Coming out of that experience and now having that story as something that is a part of who we are, we run into this challenge of like not being able to feel or wanting to be able to feel that I can be in a safe place to share my story. That's kind of the challenge that I initially faced, was thinking to myself, hey, look, this was a story that probably needs to be shared so that it can help, edify people and help, build other people up. But being in that place where, man, I don't know if I feel safe telling that story. So we run into this situation, especially when we've been hurt, where it's like, man, it becomes harder for us to learn how to find safe places, right? It becomes harder for us to learn how to find places where we know we can feel safe and we can be willing to share. And that kind of leads into the next thing is just that fear, right? Usually when we encounter these traumatic events, such as like spiritual abuse, which we've been talking about here on the channel. We're gripped with this fear. We're afraid of what others might think of us. We're afraid of maybe the person that abused us, or the person that had this thing against us. Maybe we're afraid that things may come back to them, or they may hear all these different things. So we're living in this fear because we come out of that fear, right? And in the context of spiritual abuse, and the context of seeing that happen in some of these environments, you come out of a controlling and a really fear-driven environment, and so naturally you're scared of the repercussions. If I say the things that I need to say, if I share the things that I may have experienced, or the things that I may have gone through, if I share those things, there's going to be these repercussions that I'm going to have to deal with, because that's how my mind was trained, or that's how my experience was in the environment that I was in. And so oftentimes we're afraid to say, you know what, man, I really need to share what I experienced because I know it can help somebody. But I'm so afraid of maybe what the repercussions may be. And this is a lot of stuff. If you think about it, it's a lot of things to really, really wrestle with. It's a lot of things to really wrap our minds around. Is, how do I express these things, or how do I share this story? Because of all these things that we have to wrestle with internally, we have to wrestle with these things of repercussions of having these fears and these things built up into us. But if we can learn how to get past that part, that struggle of that first wall, I guess you could say, of knowing that you've experienced something that can be beneficial to help someone else, and being willing to go past that wall and being willing to break through that wall. If I can get past that first wall and be willing to share what may have happened to me, or what my experience is, I believe that really accelerates us on this path to healing, right? It really accelerates us on this journey of healing. So I want to look with you this evening at a couple things, and just think about, okay, what happens, and how can sharing our story really help heal? How can sharing your story, sharing the thing that you've gone through, sharing the experience you've had, how can that help you to heal? Because that's really what the bottom line is okay, yes, we want to help, we want to make a difference, but at the end of the day, I want to find healing, and I want to find wholeness within my own life, right? So it's important for us to realize, how can sharing our story help us heal? So let's look at a couple things. I got 5 things that I want to look at with you. Number 1, it exposes the truth. It exposes the truth. One of the things that you see happen, and especially in an abusive situation, especially after experiencing a traumatic situation like that, is there's a lot of things that are hidden that need to be exposed, because behavior happens, things are kind of put in place, or whatever the case may be. But there's a lot of things that needs to be exposed. And if you think about who God is, and if you think about what God wants to do, is God is a revealer, right? God wants to reveal. The Bible tells us in Luke chapter 8, verse 17, for nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. So what is that telling us here? Is that we're dealing with a God that when we begin to learn how to share our story, we begin to learn how to expose the truth of what's really happening in different circumstances, right? We begin to expose the truth of how behaviors are set up, how systems are set up, how people are responding to, and all these different things. We begin to expose the truth of really what's happening within that system, and it begins to help us to realize, when I start sharing my story and I start exposing that truth, I start to realize, the thing that I did go through, the experience that I did go through was real, right? Because now you're sharing this story and you realize, yes, this is a truth that I experienced. And now other people are saying that they have gone through the same thing or experiencing the same thing. And it helps you to realize that there's some truth to it. And like I mentioned, this is what God is really after. Look at the Bible in Luke chapter 12, verse 3. It says, therefore, whatever you have said in the dark shall be heard in the light, and what you have whispered in private rooms shall be proclaimed on the housetops. I love that verse because what it tells us and what it shows us here is that as the story comes out, as things begin to be said, it will bring all the things that happen in the dark into the light, right? And if you think about it, like I mentioned before, God, he's a revealer, right? He reveals these things to us, and he oftentimes, you think about it, he reveals these things to us so it can lead us to healing. You know, he reveals all these things to us, and these things that come out of us, it can help lead us to that healing. So that's the first thing that we're looking at. The second thing here is it reconnects us. It reconnects us. Think about this. This is where I found myself maybe a couple years ago, is that when we go through, you know, these situations or come out of these situations, we see that we want to pretty much isolate ourselves and say, and at least I know I did, you know what I mean? So I'm speaking from my experience. But, you know, I felt like I would isolate myself because, you know, I felt like at that point I would have to basically just feel like I needed to remove myself from everything that kind of was going on. Everything as far as the response to the situation was, or, you know, and just really isolate myself. And what ends up happening, and this is what I learned, is that you get in this space, and I feel like it can be a dangerous space where, you know, you feel like no one can understand what you've gone through, right? No one can understand, you know, like, man, the hurt that I may have felt from this situation, or the difficulty from that experience. You feel like, man, nobody can understand what I go through, and you isolate yourself. And, you know, I felt like I did that and went through that stage in my own journey, where I just felt like, okay, well, nobody really can understand what this situation feels like, or what it was kind of doing to me as an individual internally. So therefore, I'm not going to share you know, what I'm going through or kind of what I'm facing, because nobody's really going to understand it. And I think the isolation part is what can be such a dangerous spot for us to be at, right? Especially when we're isolated, because our minds can go our minds can go from 0 to 100 thinking about things and imagining things. And when fear comes in, all these different psychological things can happen to us when we're in that space of isolation. And it can be such a dangerous space, because then the decisions that we make, you know, may or not, you know, be the best decisions, which can lead to other different things in life. But here's kind of going back to what I was saying, is that when you begin to start sharing your story, or get to that space where you start sharing your story, you start realizing that there are other people that are out there that have gone through the things that you've gone through, or have experienced something similar to what you've experienced. And they're in that same space where they're wondering, man, I don't know if anybody's going to understand like what I'm going through. And so they're searching and they're looking, and they hear your story and they say, wow, oh my gosh, you went through, and you're going through exactly what I am, you know, what I'm facing right now. And that is the power of sharing our story right there, because then it reconnects us back to humanity. It reconnects us back to getting outside of our heads and getting outside of that space of isolation, and you know, getting outside of that space that we can be in. We share our story and realize that there are others that are out there that have experienced, you know, what we've experienced and gone through, you know, what we've gone through. And that's powerful. That's so powerful, because that's the reason when you start looking at what God kind of puts us through and the things that we go through, we start recognizing that the reason that sometimes we're going through a lot of these things is for God to really just show us and help us to connect with others and help others. And in turn, that helps us heal in our own lives. And so that's really powerful. So listen, if you're getting some value from this, if you're getting some content, do me a favor, smash the like button and hit that subscribe button as we move on. Number 3, so it can lessen the pain. I think in our generation, one of the most important things that we can really address is, you know, the fact that many of us have gone through some things and have got some scars from certain things that have caused a lot of pain in our lives, and I feel like we're in a time where, now more than ever, we can, begin to share that with others, connect with others, even kind of like what I'm doing here, being able to connect with others and being able to help others that I may not be able to be in the same room as, but being able to extend, extend, a part of me and a part of my story. I think, it helps to understand that as you share the story and you start to put out, look, this is what I've experienced, and you start seeing how God can use that to help others and to help bless others' lives and help them in their healing process. It begins to help you and yourself to realize that, okay, this kind of helps ease some of the pain that I feel from the situation that I'm going through, or kind of the response, or how I'm going through this. It can help to lessen a lot of that pain in our lives, and I think that's key, because that's where we're trying to. That's the whole purpose of healing, right? This, if you get a cut, or you fall or something like that, and you get skinned up, it's going to take you some time to heal, and you're going to feel a little bit of that pain. You're going to feel a little bit of that hurt. But as time goes on and your body heals, the pain begins to go away. And I think that's the same scenario that you're dealing with here, especially when dealing with a traumatic event. It's, it helps you to just lessen that pain, and it kind of helps ease you along the path. And I think that leads perfectly into the fourth thing, and it helps to restore hope. One of the texts that we see in the Bible, in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 12, it says this. It says that when hope is crushed, the heart is crushed, but a wish come true fills with joy. And so, when we look at that text, and I look at that text, and I think about that, I realize that one of the things that all of us desperately at many times need is just hope to keep moving forward, hope to keep pushing on, hope to keep pursuing, to keep progressing in life. And I think that's one of the things that, as you're transitioning out of this, as you're going through that journey, you're looking and you're in spots and you're saying, man, okay, where is that hope at? But that kind of ties back into what we were just talking about, is that as you share that story and see how God can use it to help other people, and see how God can use it to help touch other lives, and maybe, start bringing healing to others, it restores hope in you, and realizing like, okay, yeah, God, there's still a purpose here. There's a purpose here in what has happened. There's a purpose here in what this experience is. There's a purpose here in, all the things that you've promised us and all the things that you said you would do. So now that I recognize that you can use this to help others, I recognize that there's still hope within, just within life and within doing what we're doing, right? And then kind of pursuing what we're pursuing, and sharing that story, it begins to make that connection where we realize, yes, what, God still has things in all control, and he knows how everything is going to play out. He knows, he knows the path that every single one of us is on, and it can give us a lot of hope. So I think that is really cool. And the last thing is, I kind of land the plane on this real quick, is that, sharing our story, it has the power to help heal others. And I've been alluding to this throughout everything that we've been talking about already this evening. But, that's key right there. That's so huge right there. When we recognize that, our story, our experience, although, whatever it may have been, if it was painful, if it was something difficult to go through, you may think in your mind like, okay, well, what's the purpose of all of that? Like, why have life be like that? Why have life kind of operate like that? But then when you begin to go through that, and you come out and start coming out on the other side, and you start sharing and start, letting others know, hey, look, this is what I've gone through. And they're like, hey, yeah, this is something that I've gone through too. Okay, well, hey, let's work together. Let's see how we can help, build each other up and help you go through what you're going through. Cause that's where you might be at in your spot. Where I'm at right now might be, your 2-year mark down the road. I might be 2 years ahead of you on where I'm at on my journey, and I can come alongside you and help build you up and help just help just be that that brother or sister, whatever it is that you may need. And so, sharing that story has the power, it has the ability definitely to help heal others, man. Definitely um help just build up others. And so as I wrap this up, it's a short one tonight, 20 minutes. I want to encourage you, look, as you think about the things that you may have experienced in your life and the things that you may have gone through in your life, I want you to recognize and want you to just marinate on for a moment, is that as you come out on the other side of it, as you learn the lessons, as you've gained the wisdom, as you've kind of gone through the pain, dealt with the tears, dealt with the headaches, dealt with all the fears, as you get on the other side of that, knowing that as you get finished with all of it, you're wondering, okay, God, what was the purpose in it? Sharing your story, sharing your story and beginning to share your story will help you recognize and realize, okay, this is what my experience was for. To be able to take this story, to take what happened, share this with someone else, and them to be able to see and recognize that you've gone through the same thing and you've been able to make it out. You've been able to come out on the other side, if you kind of will. That's where the power in all of this lies. And when you start seeing that happening in another life, and you start seeing that healing beginning in another life, then you start seeing that healing within your own life, and you start recognizing, okay, God, I see, I can understand it. I didn't understand it as you going through it. I didn't understand it as I'm trying to, walk through this and I'm trying to make through it. But, at the end, on the other side, as you begin to share that story, you begin to start seeing what God can do with it. You start to believe and start understanding, this is where I can find a lot of my healing at. So I want to encourage you with that. Look, it's all about us learning, healing, and growing. As I'm signing off, look, if you found this content valuable, do me a favor, hit that like button for me, share it with somebody, and then turn on that subscribe button, or hit that subscribe button rather, and hit that notification bell. Also, check out some other videos I did. They'll be up there here in this corner right here, on forgiveness. I mean, that was a crucial step in order for us to move forward. So definitely check those videos out. Until next time, listen, keep learning, keep healing, and keep growing.